Haunted Oldsmobile. So about 10 years ago, I worked graveyards as a deputy for a fairly small county geographically in the south. I'd usually be on the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift, but occasionally worked the 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. on a split when we were short-handed. The area we covered included the outskirts of a college town of approximately 125k people. By the time this particular incident occurred, I was an overnight supervisor and seen my share of strange things. I believe in the paranormal based on what I've seen, but I do my best to disprove everything. However, this particular case has been filed away in my mind as one of the strangest and potentially unexplained paranormal encounters I had during my time at the department. Due to the fact that the college town's police department ran short-staffed most weeknights, our department ran at least 2 officers on the outskirts of the college area to help out where we could. On any given night, we'd have the unruly 21-year-old drunk at the bar, a couple DUI stops, and the occasional drug overdose. Pretty common stuff for a college town. This particular event happened on Sunday night, around 4 a.m. in late August. One of my newer officers was patrolling the college area and radioed that he had seen a 90s Oldsmobile 4-door parked in a college bar parking lot with the lights and engine running. This was a fairly low violent crime area, but had its share of drug possession and distribution stops by the local PD and our department over the years. This was fairly odd, as all the staff from the bar had left for the evening, and typically, we didn't encounter cleaning staff in the area until after 5 or 6 a.m. From the young officer's observation driving through the lot, there was no one inside the vehicle. He made a courtesy stop, verified that no one was in the vehicle, checked the doors, found them locked, and relayed this information to me and dispatch. I advised to keep patrolling the area, and I would head his way to check the area for any potential vandalism in the area. He proceeded to leave the lot, drive 2 blocks, and go down an alley that ran behind the bar. About 5 or 6 minutes after our radio traffic, dispatch sent out a suspicious vehicle call in the area, matching the description of the Oldsmobile in question. Apparently, some college kids were out jogging early past the car, saw a body slumped over the steering wheel, and called 911. At this point, the local PD got wind of the call, and 4 units headed to the parking lot. I was particularly irritated, as I believed that the young officer that initially stopped out with the car got spooked by the body, and conveniently omitted the fact that there was a body in there to keep from making contact with a person, living or dead, inside without backup. So, I was the first unit to roll up on the car. The description by the college kids didn't match what I saw. When I arrived, the driver's side door was open, and a woman in her early 60s had one leg out of the vehicle and was slumped over with her head leaning towards a passenger side seat. I quickly radioed that he had a 10:54 possibly dead subject, needed EMS, and a coroner to respond to the scene. From my initial observations, it appeared that the woman had been deceased for at least 4 to 5 hours due to rigor mortis setting in at the time. It also appeared that livor mortis had begun, but I did not have the training to determine the exact time frame. This observation was confirmed by the other responding officers, including the young deputy who initially stopped out with the car. Once again, I kept my irritation with the young deputy under wraps until the body was removed and we cleared the call. I had to improv to come to Jesus with the young deputy and chastised him about being less than forthcoming about his initial investigation. However, the young deputy was adamant about what he saw. Finally, I put the video from his in-car camera to put the issue to rest. What I saw still haunts me to this day. The video clearly shows the deputy pulling up to the Oldsmobile, with his camera showing the driver and driver's side rear door. Based on the way he shined a spotlight on the vehicle, One could easily see if there was a body in the vehicle slumped over the steering wheel, as the college kids described. I watched the video at least 20 times. The deputy shined his flashlight on both sides of the car, with no body to be found. There was absolutely nothing in that car, save for the light and running engine. I apologized to the young deputy and ended up buying his lunch for the next couple weeks because I felt so bad about chewing him out. The next night, I followed up the sergeant at the local PD who responded to the call with us. His guys questioned the college kids multiple times about potentially tampering with the scene of a crime due to the disparity between their story and the way we found the body. The sergeant was hot about filing tampering charges at the kids because he was certain they moved the body and were somehow responsible. I had a copy of the young deputy's in-car camera and sent it over to his department investigations division. About a week later, the sergeant called me and wanted me to meet for lunch one night. The young deputy was also working, and I asked him to come along in the event this case came up in conversation. Needless to say, the three of us were dumbfounded by the entire event. The sergeant said their investigation division declined to press charges on the kids based on my deputy's video. The fact that the medical examiner said that the woman had likely died of natural causes at least 4 hours before we rolled up, and good alibis for where the kids were before they went out jogging. Additionally, the medical examiner stated that the patches of livor mortis indicated that the woman had been sitting for at least a couple hours in an upright position, just as the college kids described. Either way, we were all freaked out and never figured out exactly how the woman ended up in the car like she did in a span of less than 5 minutes. Since the ME indicated her death was natural and there were no signs of foul play, we closed the case out. And we started calling every 90s Oldsmobile a ghost car for months after the call. An entity is trying to imitate my boyfriend? Some backstory before I get to the weird stuff. My boyfriend and I have been together for 5 years. We have been living in our current apartment since January of last year. The apartment is the entire first floor of an older house, including the basement. No weird happenings since we've lived here. None of us are spiritual, religious, or hold any serious beliefs about anything paranormal. But this past week, I've had 2 experiences that are making me question that. Last Thursday, it was sometime after midnight. My boyfriend was asleep in the bedroom, and I decided to take a quick shower before I went to bed. As I stepped out of the shower, I felt a distinct presence between me and the door. I could feel heat coming from it, and even my hearing was slightly dulled on my right side, as if someone was standing very, very close. It gave me a definite creepy feeling, but I managed to shake it off, telling myself it had been a long week at work and I was very tired, etc. So I threw my robe on, and as I was walking to the bedroom, felt it again on my left side. At that point, I was freaked out and hightailed it into the bedroom and shut the door behind me. As soon as I did that, our next-door neighbor's dog started freaking out inside their house, barking and howling so loud I could hear it in my apartment. This is possibly unrelated, but worth mentioning, in my opinion, as we live in a very quiet neighborhood, most old people, and it's rare to see so much as a living room light on after 10 p.m. on our block. Sunday, my boyfriend had texted me saying he was heading over to a friend's house after work and wouldn't be home when I got home from work. Normal occurrence. Now sometime between 5:30 and 6 p.m., I was folding laundry in our bedroom. From where I was standing, I could see through the bedroom doorway into the dining room. We have a side door that comes in from the driveway to the dining room, and the basement door next to it. Both were in my line of view. I heard what I thought was my boyfriend put his keys in the door and turn the handle. I looked up to say hi, and watched the basement door fly open with such force, it hit the door next to it and bounced back halfway shut. Nobody had been in the basement that day, and we always keep the door shut and latched, so that our cat doesn't go down there. I was puzzled and paralyzed for a second, but managed to run over and shut and lock the door. My boyfriend didn't come home for almost 2 hours after that. This incident particularly gave me the creeps. The door flying open would have startled me, but whatever or whoever did it imitated my boyfriend unlocking the door first, possibly knowing I would look up to see the basement door open on its own, so I wouldn't be able to brush it off. Neither of us has had any deaths close to us recently, and I find it strange that this is happening after so long living here. I told my boyfriend about both incidents after he came home Sunday, and he agreed it was freaky, and he's an even bigger skeptic than I am. I tried doing some Googling, but didn't find anything particularly relevant, probably because I don't know what the hell is going on here in the first place. My paranormal experience that was collaborated by a stranger. Hi all, new to the sub. Have this crazy story that I've never told but feel you would appreciate hearing. I'll try to keep it short, but brevity isn't a strong point. Anyways, it was the summer of 2005, but this experience is burned into my memory as if it happened last month. I was in college, staying for the summer at school at an off-campus house rented by 4 of my fraternity brothers. As it's such, it was a boisterous house. Lots of people coming and going, frequent parties, often loud music, all those sorts of things from young college-aged guys. This house was built in 1930. Nothing remarkable. Located in a small Virginia town with a lot of history. This was a Sunday night, and it was different than usual. All my roommates were out of town. I was alone for the evening. It wasn't the first time to be alone, but it certainly was rare for only one person to be in the house. Oftentimes, friends would crash on couches, and there would be more than the 4 people who lived there bounding about. I did not have anything to drink, watch some TV, and turn into bed around midnight. I usually sleep well, have never suffered any sort of sleep paralysis, or even any frightening nightmares. But on this night, I couldn't fall asleep. I felt like I was being watched. I got up, confirmed all doors were locked and lights were off, and laid back down. As soon as I got back into bed, I saw it and froze in fear. What I saw was difficult to describe but impossible to forget. It was a black shadow and the silhouette of a person. But that was it. I could tell it was much darker and left an outline to the wall behind it. When I saw it, a chill went up my spine. I couldn't see many features, but could instantly tell it was looking at me. I'm laying on my back just frozen in fear. I could physically move, but I was so scared I just laid as still as possible. Was I freaking myself out? I don't think I was. The firehouse was down the road and ambulances and fire trucks frequently drove on the street outside the window of the room I lived in, on the first floor. I heard the sirens and remained still. The red flashing lights as the truck drove by briefly illuminated the room. The outline of the shadow was 100% there. There was no doubt in my mind. Some sort of dark shadow was in the room at the foot of my bed, looking at me, though I couldn't see any eyes, and I had no doubt it wasn't a living human being. Then it started moving, not really walking, but as if on a people mover, just sliding slowly but steadily. When I first saw it, it was to my right, just beyond my foot. It was moving to my left. It got to the end of the bed and turned to me, seeming to rotate, so its dark head was ever focused and locked on me. Just typing this now gives me chills and goosebumps all these years later. Once it turned, it slowly made its way down the bed closer to me. I was frozen with fear, praying it would go away. I considered screaming. I considered running out the room. I thought about rolling over and pulling the sheets over my head, and just pretending I was somehow tricking myself into imagining. But I just couldn't because I knew I wasn't tricking myself at all. Finally, as it got almost up to me, it seemingly started leaning down right into my face, the black silhouette very distinct. I just squeezed my eyes tight and refused to open them. I stayed that way, petrified and awake, but with my eyes closed for what felt like hours. I once slowly opened them and couldn't tell if the figure was still close to me or not. But I was so freaked out, I didn't know what was going on. Finally, at first light, pretty early at that time of the year, I got up and ran out of the house, stopping only to grab a shirt and sandals and basically sprinting outside. I didn't come back until later, when a couple of roommates were back. I repeated to them basically everything I said above, and they thought I was either crazy or tricking myself. Since it was August and summer was almost over, I slept on a couch in the living room for the short time left. I already had plans to move out for the school year to a different apartment, and was so scared that I did not want to stay in that room ever again. Life sort of settled down. Business went on as usual. Until the following Saturday afternoon, 6 days after my experience. A group of my friends were relaxing, watching TV, when 4 to 5 members of a family, all wearing matching reunion t-shirts, knocked on the door. This house had been in their family a long time ago. They wondered if we would let them in so they could walk through and reminiscence. Weird but sure, they were older, each one no younger than 50, with a couple in their 60s and 70s, and seemed nice, so we let them inside. We pretty much just went back to watching TV while they wandered around the house. My room was attached to the living room, and once they walked through the kitchen, one of the older ladies pointed into my room and somewhat said, "Oh, I remember that room. It was cousin so-and-so's room, but her daddy, my Uncle Clarence, would never go in there because he saw a ghost, and he was so shook that he never messed around in there again." I was absolutely floored. This woman volunteered the information. I did not even think to ask them if they knew about any sort of weird happenings. At this point, even my buddies were stunned to hear this. And now I was happy I told them about it when I did. I asked if the uncle was prone to make up crazy stories, and she said no. By all accounts, he was a fairly typical family member, not any type of person to come up with weird stories for attention or anything like that. So that's about it. If you made it this far, I thank you for reading. I didn't mean to make it so lengthy, but I wanted it to be as descriptive as possible in hopes that the story was enjoyable, and in case it rang any bells for anyone out there. Saw Bigfoot on Old Highway 99, south of Rosberg, Oregon in 1977. I was visiting my brother for a few weeks in Tacoma, Washington. He was stationed at Fort Lewis Army Base nearby. My brother and his friend George decided they would drive me back to Los Angeles where I lived and where they grew up too. When we got to Rosberg, the transmission went out and we had to stay for the weekend because nobody was available to fix the tranny. It was Sunday. So we got a small motel room and decided to go to the movies at a small movie house on a farm. Yes, 7 miles south of town. The film was Star Wars, the original one. Took a cab there, decided to walk back to the motel, which was on Highway 99 south of town. Long walk, very dark, very few cars. Something was following us, I could tell, with the hillsides. Walking across creek, as we walked over a bridge, made loud crump, crunk sounds. Finally, we could hear it walking through a patch of forest on the side of a hill to our right, as it was breaking branches, not twigs, branches. So I looked over and saw a huge arm reach up and grasp a branch to snap it. I didn't wait until I heard the snap, but we all took off running, and we ran for what probably was 2 miles. The fur was darkish reddish brown, very thick. Saw the hand grasp a tree branch, a thick branch which it snapped like a twig, Did not search for a face or body. Saw enough. Ran. Later told my dad, who said it was a bear. No, sorry. It was not a paw I saw wrap around a branch, but a hand. Don't remember any noise other than snapping of large, thick branches. And my brother saying, "Come on, run, run!" True story. On Highway 99 south of Roseburg, just south of the wide bend in the road. About 2 miles south in an old motel, 1977 I believe, or 78, whenever Star Wars came out. Could use some advice. Starting to get creeped out. Hello. I don't know where else to ask for advice on this. I live in a 3-bedroom house. There's me, my roommate S, and our old roommate, who moved out a couple weeks ago. Now, the old roommate, I'll call him Jay, has some unusual interests. He was into the occult and things like that. Me and S don't share these interests, but it was no problem. We just had a rule about Jay not burning candles in the house because of the fire hazard. Cut to 2 weeks ago. It was the weekend, and both me and S were out the whole time. I got back on Sunday night to find a note left by Jay saying, "I'm sorry, but I can't live here anymore. I'm moving back to my parents' house." He had moved all his stuff out already, just clothes and things, because the heavy furniture came with the room. Me and S were pissed off, because it is inconvenient to find a new person, but thankfully, Jay agreed to keep paying rent until we filled the room again. Anyways, since Jay has left, things have been weird in the house. There's a knocking sound that happens on the walls, and our light bulbs continually blow. I mean, we'll replace a new bulb and it'll blow 5 minutes later. We never had a problem before. A heavy dresser in Jay's room moves several feet across the floor, and both S and I are adamant that neither of us moved yet. Now, I'm pretty skeptical of these things, but the other day, S said she saw a weird shadow thing in the hallway outside of Jay's room. I didn't really believe her, but yesterday I saw it myself, and now I'm getting worried. I know Jay was interested in things like demon summoning, and it also seemed weird for him to leave like that. He's a generally stable person, and it seemed out of character. S sent Jay a message asking if something strange happened in the house on the weekend, in which he decided to leave, and he refused to answer that question. We've never had anything weird happen in the house before now, I should add. The Banishing. Mentioned this experience in a comment on another post, and figured I should go ahead and elaborate it on here. I have lived a life rife with paranormal experiences. I've been the target of physical and psychic attacks. I've seen things, heard things. I partake in astral travel regularly. This is what I consider to be the beginning of all this. This is where it started. My uncle is a minister. He and my aunt lived a state away. Each summer, I visit him for a week or so. This is the first visit I have memory of. I was 3 years old. I was woken up by my uncle one night. He appeared distressed. I was told I needed to get up and get dressed, that we had to go do something, and he couldn't leave me alone. I complied, and he, my aunt, and I drove not terribly far away to a building belonging to the church he was assigned to. I recall a conversation about how things were getting worse, and how something had to be done right away. I had no idea what they were talking about. We arrive at the building. From what I could tell, it was like a recreation multi-purpose building where churches would hold bazaars, community events, potlucks, Sunday school, etc. My uncle unlocked the heavy metal double doors, and we entered the dark building. A group of people met us there. I started to wander to find something to do, as any 3-year-old might. I headed up a set of stairs and off to the left, into a dark room. My uncle noticed and promptly retrieved me. He told me to stay with him, because sometimes homeless people sleep there at night. I accepted his reasoning. even though I witnessed him unlocking the door to the building. There was no way someone was sleeping in there. I followed my uncle up more stairs into a mostly empty room where the rest of the group was already waiting. The room was dark, but faintly lit by candles. I'm not sure why they didn't turn on any lights at all. I shuffled out of the way and found a place near the only window in the room. As I looked out, I could still see the orange glow of streetlights illuminating the street below. The shadow of the church's steeple stretched across the street. The group began reading from their Bibles. They prayed. They made demands. After some time of this, I saw a dark shadow bolt across the room. I heard frantic footsteps running down the stairs. I heard the metal double doors slam open and slam shut. I could hear footsteps on pavement, and when I looked out the window again, I saw a shadow bolting across the street and away from the building. I've asked my uncle about this many times over the years. At one time, he explained to me that there had been bad activity in that building for some time. Something had happened that day to bring about the urgency of expelling this being. He wouldn't give me many details. Now, when I ask him about it, he'll completely refuse to discuss that night. It's as though my mention of it makes him uncomfortable and angry. I don't really blame him. We both know he should have never taken me there, especially considering what they were doing. My next experience, which was a major one, followed shortly after this banishing. I felt like witnessing what I did at such a young age has opened me up to everything that's followed. Eight men and a boy in my home. This experiences happened at my home in Chicago. I lived there for 4 years, 98 to 01. Here is a bit of information on my family. I have 3 sisters and my mom and dad that lived in the house. At that time, my older sister was 6, me 4, younger sister 2, and our youngest sister was a newborn. It was a house you could rent the first floor and the second floor. We lived in the second floor. There was a series of events that would happen, and my parents were mostly the main witnesses. So, my dad has always been really into the paranormal and witchcraft stuff. He always wanted to play the Ouija board, but was always scared to play by himself, since nobody would do it with him. So one time my dad bought the board, and my mom got really mad. She told me to get rid of it. So he just didn't open it and put it in the closet. So in 2000, my mom went to Mexico with me and my 2 sisters. While we were in Mexico, my dad and 2 of his friends decided to play the Ouija board inside our house. Now, the board didn't really say anything besides say yes when they asked if a spirit was there. But after that, nothing happened. We had a closet towards the front of the house where we had workout equipment, toys, etc. When we got back from Mexico, my mom found the board in the closet and got furious with my dad. He just laughed it off and said nothing would happen. But stuff did happen. My parents' room was right by the kitchen, and it was like 1 or 2 a.m. They were sleeping when they heard the sink faucet open. My mom said you could clearly hear the water dripping. My dad heard it too, but my dad is the most coward man ever. He sent my mom to go check what it was. She went, turned on the lights, but the sink was dry. Like the faucet was never opened. They checked the bathroom sink, but nothing. Now, my sister is 6, and I was 4. We had this pink kid's chair that we would always fight over. One day, my mom was fed up with us fighting, so she took the chair and put it in that storage closet, and pushed the couch in front of the closet door so we wouldn't get to it. My sister and I got over it. That night, my mom had a dream that she would wake up to a little boy playing with her pink chair. He would place toys on it, or just put his head on it or something. She didn't think there was anything wrong, but then when she woke up in the morning, the pink chair was in the middle of our living room. She was scared because we couldn't have moved the huge couch by ourselves, and it was still covering the door. It wasn't my dad, because my dad would cheat on my mom, so she would leave for a few days without coming home. She asked me and my sister, but we thought she was just trying to scare us. My room that I shared with my sister was right by the door to go to the stairs to go outside. We always kept our bedroom open, but my sister and I were always so scared. We had no idea what ghosts were, and let alone what paranormal things were, but at night, we always had this fear of the dark. My mom was annoyed because she knew this started with my dad and him playing with the Ouija board. So my dad became friends with this guy over at AOL chat room thing, and the guy's mom was like a witch doctor, I guess you could say. She could see and feel spirits. The guy came with his mom, and the lady was really sweet. I clearly remember her. The lady pulls my mom to the kitchen, and I remember following her, but my mom made me go play with my sisters in the living room, and my dad was on the computer with the son. My mom said that the lady told her this: "You and your husband fight a lot, right? He cheats on you, and you have nobody to trust." My mom got annoyed because she thought my dad told this lady their life story. My mom called my dad to the kitchen, and the lady repeated herself to my dad. My dad was mad because he thought my mom told the lady their problems after just knowing her for an hour. But then she said, "I know this because they're telling me. There is 8 men and a little boy who are trying to take your oldest daughter's body. They are so mad that I'm here." And she looked at my mom when she said that. The lady stretched her arm out. The lady's skin turned red, and she saw her skin being pressed, and she said, "Look, they're trying to scratch me and hurt me, because they don't want me to tell you guys this." And she started walking towards the door with her son, and she said, "Take care of her, because she's not safe," pointing at my older sister. My mom and dad had a huge fight because of it. Then time passed without anything happening. The neighbors downstairs were a Mexican couple with 3 sons, all in their 20s. One of them married an African-American girl and had 2 kids. His name was Noah. I remember him so clear too, and a newborn. She got along really well with my mom, because besides her husband, my mom was the only one that spoke English. So she goes upstairs to ask my mom about a Mexican dish and how to cook it. She told my mom she didn't feel safe. She said that she was sleeping with her baby in her room, and Noah was taking a nap on the couch. It was in the morning and everyone was at work. She went to the kitchen to warm the baby bottle when Noah wakes up. She looked at Noah, and Noah had a different face. It was a man's face, and then she said, "Noah, Noah, go back to sleep. Noah, lay down." But the face just looked at her, and he laid back down. Then like 2 weeks later, it was a Sunday, and her in-laws said they were going to do a cookout in the backyard. She fell asleep with the baby and again woke up because the baby was hungry. She goes in the living room, and there's 8 men sitting there. She says hi, but they ignore her. She thought they were guests for the cookout. So she goes in the room and gets on the phone with her mom. Then her in-laws and her husband get home. They went out to eat because they didn't want to disturb her and the newborn, since they had a rough night. They asked who the 8 men were, but they had no idea. And my mom had not told anybody about the incidences she had. She didn't tell the girl about what happened to us. My mom put cut up limes by the front door and left for the day with my dad and us to go shopping. They told her they would soak up bad energies, so they get back home and the limes are black. My mom swears to God that nobody else had keys, and at the time, the limes were black and squeezed up. I have other stories, but this one is pretty long already. Let me know if anyone wants to see any other ones.